Welcome to Tipsy Tropes, a weekly video series where everyone's favorite imbibing bibliophiles talk tropes. We'll analyze a literary trope, give some examples, and decide whether the trope is worth another round or if it has reached its last call. So grab a drink and join us for our newest game. Cheers!
Today we are talking about a trope which we've talked about on the podcast before.
Yes.
Which is homogenous species.
Yes.
Which is to say, and this is most common in fantasy,
Especially.
that if a character is of X species, they are good, and if a character is of Y species, they are bad.
I don't know, I read the Silmarillion.
So that's a good example. Lord of the Rings is like a primo example, and that's where we talked about it. It was in our Hobbit episode.
Yes,
Very
definitely.
first episode of the podcast.
Which, needs some sound work.
Yeah,
we may re-go over old books.
We're building our brand. We're working on it.
Building our brand. Hashtag build your brand. Hashtag it's to a stop.
Hashtag build your brand. That's going to be a thing now, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So, in The Hobbit, elves are like
genuinely, usually
inherently good guys. They're the good guys.
Yes.
And the orcs are the bad guys. Like never in the entirety of Lord of the Rings, of the like base trilogy, do you ever meet a good orc?
No. You also don't meet a bad elf either.
Yeah.
Or a bad hobbit.
You meet elves that maybe are like have different motivations than you, or not as nice, or a little bit snarky, but they're always like on the side of good. And then the orcs are bad. I do take umbrage with the homogenous species trope.
Oh, you meant the word, not the character.
Yeah, the actual vocab word.
I need more wine.
I dislike a thing is what that means. That's not the exact term. Don't look it up. It's kind of inherently racist.
A little bit.
Especially in Tolkien's world, because elves are described, or orcs are described as dark skin, slanted eyes, etc., and the elves are always fair-skinned and tall and beautiful. It also kind of overlaps with the trope of like ugly people are bad, beautiful people are good.
Yeah.
Which is not true either. Both of these tropes are bad.
That's a trope for another episode.
Yes, it is. Basically, both of these tropes are problematic because they're blankets.
Yes.
Over an entire group of people, and that's not the way the world works.
Definitely not. For really?
So recently,
we are a literature podcast.
Yeah.
If Shakespeare can make up words, so can we.
Sure, we're on par with Shakespeare. That's it.
Yeah.
So I recently finished a different podcast, not ours, because I already listened to ours.
Is that one D&D one you've been talking
Yeah,
about?
the Adventure Zone.
Yes.
So the Adventure Zone came out like,
hi, Adventure Zone boys.
Griffin McElroy, listen to my podcast. I love you so much. Holy shit.
Please listen to our podcast. We love you.
So the Adventure Zone, the first Adventure Zone arc is a traditional D&D arc. And one of the really cool NPCs, or like side characters, I guess, in that story, is a half-orc woman named Killian. And she is a badass with a crossbow. And she's like one of the bestest of good guys.
I'm straight and I'm already in love with her.
Oh, she's not, though. She's not straight. So don't worry about that. But anyway, my point is, like, it makes your story more interesting. Like,
it does.
In my D&D I don't have a D&D podcast. I wish I did. In my D&D group, I'm a dungeon master.
I don't share.
I'm a dungeon master for a D&D group, and we have a half-orc in our group as well.
Oh.
His name is Drawn, and he has the best heart of any of us.
Was that the one who had the sword that immediately just stuck to his hand and he just lived with it?
Yeah. Yep, that's my boy. Being a DM is exhausting. But that's not what we're here about. We're here to determine whether or not the homogenous species trope is good. And I say...
Last call.
Last call.
Last call.
We don't want anything to do with that shit.
Give
us some interesting characters who are ugly and fat and orcs, and they're the good guys and they have hearts of gold. That is what I'm interested in.
You know that book that I had you read of mine?
Yes.
One of the characters you have not met yet has a love interest that is a dark-skinned half-elf. Yep. And she is fantastic.
So like a drow?
That's a word?
A drow is a dark elf in D&D. Don't worry about it.
No.
Don't worry about it.
No.
I'm a nerd.
No, definitely not that. I'm a nerd too, and that's a new word to me.
So anyways, that is Tipsy Tuesday.
Tipsy
I don't know what
Tropes.
day of the week it is.
It's not Tuesday.
It could be any day.
It's
Who can really say?
not Tuesday.
But it's Tipsy Tropes with Liz and Casey. tune in to our Facebook page next week for another one of these, or check out our podcast on SoundCloud, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Or our website, litliteraturepodcast.com. Or you can tweet at us at Wine Literature on Twitter, or follow us on Instagram.
And we'll see you next time.
Cheers!
Cheers!